Welcome to Unit 2, Learning Target Number 1, which is integers in the real world. Today we're going to go over first some vocabulary. So our first vocabulary word is integer. And an integer is a whole number that is either positive or negative. All right, and an example of that would be something like -3 or 0 or +5, anything like that. So an integer is just a whole number that is positive or negative. Well, let's talk about a rational number for success criteria number 2. A rational number is different than an integer. A rational number is a decimal or fraction that is either positive or negative. So don't forget you're writing this on your notes. If at any time you need to pause the video, please feel free. So an example of that would be like -1/2 or positive 0.24 or maybe -72.3. Anything that is positive or negative, maybe 1 3/4, anything like that. Okay, so rational number is a fraction or decimal, an integer is a whole number. In the real world, a positive number represents something that is growing, something that is increasing, something that is getting hotter. So when we talk about temperature, okay, so something that's growing or increasing, getting hotter, it could be a temperature above 0. So it's anything with a positive sign. Remember, a positive number doesn't have to have a positive sign. The opposite of that in the real world is a negative number represents something that's getting smaller, something that is shrinking, something that goes away. And if it's a temperature, it's a temperature below 0. Okay? So getting smaller or shrinking or goes away, or when we're talking about temperature, it's below 0. So when it's like -5 degrees. Right? And then lastly, for our vocabulary, in the real world, according to success criteria number 5, 0 represents sea level. It also represents being at the entrance. It could also represent having nothing. Any of those things would work. So make sure you write all 3 things down. If it's a temperature, it's 0 degrees. So for a temperature, it is 0 degrees. And I'll fix that for you. Okay, so make sure that you have all of this vocabulary down. I know I type a lot faster than you can write, but at any time you can pause. You're gonna have to know this vocabulary for your formative quick checks. All right, let's go to our inside now, and let's talk about success criteria number 6. That says I can use negative and positive integers and rational numbers to represent quantities given real world scenarios. So for instance, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to draw this out. The first one says 94 degrees above 0. Remember, a positive integer is when it's above the 0 in temperature. So it would be positive 94. Or you could just say 94. Each one doesn't matter. Both of them both represent positive. 6 degrees below 0. Well, that would be a -6. Because it's below 0, it's less. So I'm going to let you do the last 2 on your own. Make sure you do these. Do not leave them blank. Let's talk about money. If I'm owing money, that means it's a -5. I owe dollars, that means I'm going to have to give it away. And then if I deposit something into my bank account, I'm giving myself money or putting it into my account, that means my account is going to grow. So it's positive 100. And last one that I'm going to do with you, if it costs $10, that means I'm going to have to pay it out. So my bank account's going to get smaller. Again, do these last two on your own and make sure you fill in those answers. We're going to be looking at them in class. Sea level. I mentioned that in our vocabulary. If it's at sea level, it's at 0. 500 feet above sea level means it's a positive 500. Or you could just say 500. It's the same thing. And then the last one I'm going to do with you, if it's 3 yards below sea level, that means it's a negative 3. It's below 0. All right, make sure you do those two on your own. All right, last section. When we're looking at opposites, it says, I can use negative and positive integers and rational numbers to describe opposites given real-world scenarios. All right, well, let's read this. First one. The opposite of a number is the number that is the blank blank from blank, but in the opposite direction, okay? So it is the same, so write same distance. So my second blank is same distance, or the same amount of spaces. The same distance. That's supposed to be one word, but it looks a little messy. From 0, but in the opposite direction. So when we're talking about opposites, I'll show you right now what that means. Okay? So grab your pencil. Let's get going. Let's read this first one here. The opposite of positive 4. So I'm going to put a dot here. And the opposite of positive 4 would be negative 4. I'll show you why. Because from 0, there's 4 spaces going towards 4. And from 0, there's 4 spaces going towards negative 4. It's the same amount of spaces, but just in 2 different directions. All right, let's go to the next one. Negative 3. The opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. All right, or you could write it this way with a plus sign. It doesn't matter, whichever one you prefer. Okay, let's test our theory. So from 0, it should go 1, 2, 3 spaces. And from 0 to positive 3, it goes 1, 2, 3 spaces. That's how we know they're opposites. All right, next one. The opposite of positive 6. All right, so we have positive 6 here. The opposite of that would be negative 6. Why? Well, because we know there's 6 spaces from 0 either way. All right, go ahead and finish that last one on your own. That should be pretty easy. Make sure you bring this to class with you because we're going to be going over this vocabulary as well as these examples.